Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show, let's take a look inside. Lin Li looked away from the two unlucky bandits and toward the mine as he became interested in what was inside. He quickly chanted, releasing an illuminating spell, before leading Isekaied and Jirian inside the mine shaft. Perhaps because it was morning, the air in the cave was unusually cold, and even Lin Li sneezed a couple of times when they entered. Rubbing his nose, he slowly walked into the depths of the cave under the guidance of the illuminating spell. The excavation Jirian had ordered was quite effective. The mouth of the cave had only been wide enough for a mine cart to pass through, but now, thanks to the hundreds of workers, it could even fit a chariot. The three soon saw a flat plot of land after entering. This was the place Jirian had mentioned hearing the sound from. There was a huge crater in the middle of the land, with freshly dug earth lining the sides of it. Tools of all sorts were scattered around on the ground. The place was messy and unorganized, probably due to the workers rushing outside after they saw something happen. Lin Li maintained the illuminating spell as he carefully walked into the crater, and saw a slanted tunnel extend far ahead. It was effective to have many workers indeed. They had dug a tunnel a few hundred meters long in a few days' time. The trio walked for about 5 minutes before seeing a light ahead. A tightly shut door lay at the end of the tunnel. There were lamps on either side of the door, probably left there by the workers. The oil was running out now, and the fire from the lamps flickered weakly in the dark. "Hang on, don't come over yet." Lin Li waved away the illuminating spell, and chanted a spell as he laid a mental protection field in front of the door. Indeed, the stone door was filled with strange symbols. They looked crooked and messy, just like a child's doodles. Jirian and Isekaied gave it a few glances, before they looked elsewhere as these things were too difficult for them to comprehend. However, it was a different story when Lin Li saw it. Impressive. Even Lin Li, who was a guru of inscription himself, marveled at it as he stood outside the tightly shut door. This song of death Manhwa was worthy of his admiration indeed. While it looked messy, it was easy to spot once you looked closely. Its messiness was planned as it helped reduce the conflicts that might arise between various flows of magic by diverting magic circuits so as to minimize the waste of mana. The 6 magic nodes also formed a natural system which allowed the flowing magic to be recycled again. In order to have such thought and technique, the person who made this had to be a master, if not a guru, of inscription. "Is this door powerful?" Jirian asked when he saw Lin Li's frown. "Why don't I get a few mages and have them blow the door up?" "President Jirian, I don't think that'll be a good idea." Isekaied gulped nervously. The tunnel was freshly dug, and the proper supporting frames had not yet been installed. If they were to blow up this place with magic, it would surely collapse. Then, it might take another 3 days for the workers to dig them out of the debris. "Don't worry, I'll think of something." Lin Li shook his head as his gaze remained on the door. The structure of a song of death Manhwa was not complicated. The key was the 6 magic nodes. As long as he destroyed one of them, the Manhwa would be destroyed, but he did not dare take the risk for now. Most masters of inscription would lay traps at the magic source of the Manhwa, or have it self-destruct or attack. Anyway, they'd make life difficult for anybody who dared to destroy the Manhwa. The one who laid down the Manhwa might have been a necromancer, so Lin Li did not dare to take any risks all the more. If the trap at the magic source was so strong that it collapsed the tunnel, were they going to wait for the workers to dig them out? As he was a guru of inscription, the song of death Manhwa did not take up too much of Lin Li's time, even though it was a little tricky. With a deep hum, an idea came to Lin Li. He chanted a spell, and a blue light appeared in his palm. This was a magic suppression spell that had been used by mages in a fight. It suppressed the explosion of magic and served to protect the mage. It was similar to element annihilation in its use, except that it could be used in more ways. It couldn't be helped, element annihilation was inflexible, and only a guru-level inscriber had a chance to expand its usage. Magic suppression spell was more flexible, and it could even help block an attack from behind once with concentration. Of course, Lin Li was not trying to block an attack from behind, he was trying to block the trap on the magic source. "Step back, just in case." Lin Li did not say what would happen, but his expression was enough to scare Izura and Jirian into taking a few steps backward. Seeing that the two knew how powerful it could be, Lin Li smiled in satisfaction before he brought the blue light in his palm to the door. "Felik, be careful." Even though Jirian cowered at the back, he still remembered to remind Lin Li. "Don't worry," Lin Li assured Jirian with a wave of his hand. The Song of Death Mageweth on the door was not unlike what Lin Li imagined it to be. Well-thought-out magic circuit and precise magic nodes made the Mageweth's structure impenetrable. As he stood in front of the door, Lin Li could clearly feel a suppressed and dark magical wave lingering around him. That was the strength of the Song of Death. If anyone fell into it, they would be trapped in endless nightmares, while negative emotions and scary hallucinations would keep haunting them. Its effect on one's mental strength was worse. Even an archmage might be rendered helpless by a touch of the Song of Death, much less the two bandits. Lin Li would have just gone ahead usually. While the Song of Death was powerful, it only attacked one's mental strength, and a creature like Lin Li would not be afraid of that. He had been able to withstand Old Merlin's mental attack at only level 8, hence, it would be less of a threat to him now that he was at level 16. Unfortunately, he couldn't do that now. The 1,000 miles of ice at the Blackwater River Bay had hurt his inner strength too much, and his mental strength had yet to recover fully. Any mistake would cost him his life. Lin Li did not wish to become schizophrenic either. Hence, he cautiously wielded the magic suppression spell and inched forward, looking for a spot the trap might explode from. This was a deceivingly simple process, as magic suppression spell was different from common magic. The slower the movement, the more taxing it was, as every move in position meant he had to filter the magical waves around him again and calculate the most suitable elemental sequencing. The figures he calculated were basically astronomical, given that Lin Li moved at a snail's pace and had to exert mana that was more than enough to exhaust any archmage. Only a creature with incredibly powerful mental strength and limitless mana like Lin Li could manage to maintain a magic suppression spell at such a slow pace. "That's right, it should be here." Lin Li heaved a long sigh of relief when the blue ball of light stopped at the center of the 6 magic nodes. This should be right. Lin Li did not even do another elemental sequencing, as he could guess the end result. Well, he was an inscriber, and one of the best at that. He was more or less able to guess what an inscriber was thinking when they laid down a Mageweth. Just like with the trap in front of him, it was right in the center of 6 magic nodes, and if it exploded, it'd immediately be supported by the 6 nodes, and thus make it more powerful and of a greater scale than if the trap was placed elsewhere. Lin Li inhaled deeply before fixing the magic suppression spell in the center, and started chanting spells hurriedly. As the chanting echoed, so did a crisp sound. The Eye of Decay fell on the magic node, and the latter was destroyed in a second. Since the connecting node was gone, the magical waves that escaped the magic circuit filled the tunnel. Before Jirian and Izura realized what was going on, the ball of light in Lin Li's hand suddenly lit up, and they saw lumps of blue combining with lumps of black in a flash. "Damn it, rage of the natural disaster?" Jirian almost bit his tongue. This was a true rage of the natural disaster, a legendary level 18 necromagic. Even the Pope of the Leaden Kingdom had been injured by one when he was younger. To think he would have such an honor, to see its incredible power unfold in a mineshaft. Lin Li's face paled as the rage of the natural disaster started. That was right, while he was aware that this was a trap, he never would have thought that it would be so powerful. Hell, so what if he once stayed a week at the Shadowglen, so what if he knew the unmatched necromancer Sendros, and so what if he was once mistaken for some immortal king? This rage of the natural disaster was level 18. Not even in his wildest imagination did he think he would one day be faced with such terrifying necromagic. The effect of the magic suppression only lasted a second before it was engulfed by the wild spread of darkness. However, this second was incomparably precious to Lin Li. A single second was neither long nor short, yet it was sufficient for Lin Li to release a sliver of mana and activate the brand of dusk on his finger. An elemental channel materialized in the dark void of the sky. In an instant, the world fell into silence even though it was restless with the death aura just a moment ago. It was like a rock sinking into the ocean, but the ripples disappeared without a trace before they had the chance to form. Everything happened too quickly for anyone to react. It felt like a dream for Jirian and Izura. Everything ended in a flash before it even had the chance to start, before they saw the black rays of the rage of the natural disaster explode violently and disappear. The event's speed made it all too surreal. It's gone? Jirian stared open-mouthed at the stone door, his chubby face full of disbelief. It's gone. Just like that? Lin Li almost sat on the ground. Just like that? He thought. *T, if I didn't use the magic suppression spell earlier on, this mineshaft might have collapsed thanks to the rage of the natural disaster. Just like that? Only that damned fatty could say that. Between the back and forths of the two, a faint noise came from the tightly shut cave door. Swish, swish, as the faint noise echoed in their ears, the cave door had already started to tremble lightly. Sand and dirt trickled down from the freshly dug tunnel ceiling, then, to the trio's pleasant surprise, the tightly shut cave door began to slowly open. An endless gloom lay on the other side of the cave door. Standing in the dim light, Lin Li furiously rubbed his eyes, but he could still only barely make out the outline of what lay ahead. There seemed to be a long and narrow tunnel, stretching beyond what they could see. As Lin Li stood outside the cave door, he could not help but imagine a bloodthirsty beast in front of him. Perhaps due to the old age, layers of algae grew on the thick slabs of stones that made up the floor, thus giving them the cold and slimy feel of a python's scales. The moment the cave door opened, they caught a whiff of rancid smell of decay coming from the tunnel. The rancid smell was comparable to that of the skeletons in the Shadow Glen, thick and dense, as though the smell had somehow solidified into something. Maybe it was due to the opened cave door, but the chilling wind sweeping past their ears only added on to their terror in this tenebrous setting. "Shall we go in and take a look?" Izura whispered after swallowing his saliva with difficulty. "Nonsense, the door is already open, don't tell me we're going back." "Say, Izura, when did you become such a coward?" Lin Li barely opened his mouth when Jirian cut in. His chubby face was filled with such excitement that one would think there was an unclothed beauty standing before them instead of a gloomy cave. "Be careful." Lin Li could not help feeling perplexed upon seeing the eager Jirian. This rascal really doesn't know what's good for him. His mana has already been shattered, yet he is still the first to dive into everything. God, how can he be so reckless in such a place? All you need is a couple of traps for this fatso to fall into. Don't worry, Jirian was hardly aware of the danger. With a wave of his hand, the middle-aged fatty sauntered off into the tunnel. However, as soon as he stepped foot into it, the smile on his face stiffened. Crunch. A very normal sound rang out, yet in this gloomy setting, it set off everyone's nerves. What happened? Lin Li chased anxiously while grasping the ether staff tightly, ready to save Jirian with his magic the moment something was off. I'm fine. Jirian barely managed a smile that seemed worse than a grimace even in this dim light. It's just. For God's sake, I might have stepped on something. What? Lin Li hurriedly uttered 2 lines, and released the illuminating spell. Thanks to the blinding lights, Lin Li finally saw everything clearly. He did not know whether to laugh or cry in that instant. Maybe it was because of Jirian's awful luck, but he had stepped on a skeleton. Then again, in this tenebrous setting, coupled with the periodic gusts of chilling wind, it made sense that even the bravest man would be in shock having stepped on a skeleton. Lin Li brushed his nose, and sheepishly explained, I forgot to mention earlier, but the Song of Death ManhwaRecap relies on the power of death to work. So, I guess what you are stepping on is the source of the Song of Death ManhwaRecap. *T, it almost scared the living lights out of me. Why don't I lead the way instead? Lin Li held the illuminating spell while leading the two into the tunnel. This was one scary-looking tunnel. The trio carefully proceeded, yet despite walking for around 10 minutes, they still could not see the end. Only when Lin Li started yawning did the 3 of them finally see a greenish light coming from the distance. From where they were, the speck of light reminded them of a vigil light as it flickered in the air, sending a chill running down their spines. Only, the 3 could not find it in themselves to care at this point anymore. they would go ahead even if there was a whole graveyard lying in front of them, much less a vigil light. As the three of them went nearer, the speck of light grew brighter as well. When Lin Li could finally see the speck of light clearly, he could not help but to draw a mouthful of cold air at the sight. F***ck. It was a gem of curse. Legend had it that the gem of curse only existed within the rare heavenly mithril, and even then they were few in numbers. One the size of a fingertip was enough for a necromancer to summon tens and thousands of the undead. Even in the endless world, Lin Li had only read of it in various books, and the gem usually appeared along a scary tale even in those circumstances. Maybe some necromancer used a gem of curse to summon thousands of the undead and murdered a few tribes, or an ambitious lich embedded one of these gems in his life case in order to become immensely powerful, and should the brave fail to stop him in time, he would use this power to destroy the universe, etc., etc. There were numerous tales surrounding the gems of curse, but their only similarity was that their powers were terrifying. That was right, the power of the gems of curse could only be described as terrifying. Well, looks like this joke got out of hand. Lin Li swallowed his saliva with difficulty, even just staring at the gem of curse made his breathing speed up. That couldn't be helped, this gem of curse was too big, so big it was unbelievable. If the dragon's eye on the ether staff was a lucky find, then this gem of curse could only be a miracle. The gem of curse was the size of a fist. It floated quietly, radiating green light. The surging death energy was much stronger than the one at the Shadow Glen, in the War of Thousands of the Undead. As Lin Li stood there, he began to unconsciously reach for the gem of curse. It was truly a priceless treasure, and at the hands of a master of the 5 arts, it could even be turned into a god-tier magical equipment. However, just as he reached out halfway, Lin Li gritted his teeth, and hurriedly withdrew his hand. No. Just before he got hold of the gem of curse, Lin Li suddenly realized that something was amiss. It made no sense for this gem of curse to be here, silently floating in the air, just as though it had appeared out of nowhere, without any force to protect it. In normal circumstances, abnormal meant something was wrong. What is it? As Jirian witnessed everything, he could not help feeling confused for a second. He was not aware of how precious the gem of curse was, but he knew that the young man before him was not just any other man. If something could entice him so strongly, it had to be a treasure of immeasurable value. Hence, Jirian was immensely curious as to why this young man gave up on the treasure lying right in front of him. Nothing. With that said, Lin Li had no mind to explain this right now, and merely shook his head. Setting his sight somewhere else, he said, "Let's take a look first." Only at this point did Lin Li realize that this was an empty stone room with 2 exits. One was the long and narrow tunnel, and the other was opposite the tunnel. From a distance, it looked like a stone door left ajar, but from the center of the stone room, it looked like there was a speck of green light hovering around. My God, so that's what it is. When Lin Li saw the speck of green light, he had a eureka moment. No wonder he found the gem of curse strange. He had thought that the green light came from the gem of curse at first, but never expected that this was actually a mage with. 3 6-pointed star arrays were laid out one after another, and together formed a complicated many-sided shape. This was a disaster energy field without question. Its sole purpose was to distill death energy before reclassifying it to sustain the operation of magical equipment like the Psychic Tower and the Great Graveyard. Anyway, this was a mageweth that a top-notch necromancer had to master. On certain levels, the disaster energy field acted like a heart and controlled everything. Once this heart stopped, the world it ran would also fall into nothing. Hence, Lin Li withdrew his hand. Lin Li knew that the mine probably hid more than just simple treasures. For the gem of curse and the disaster energy field to appear at the same time, this might just be the burial ground of some powerful necromancer. This was no child's play. The burial ground of a top-notch necromancer meant powerful magical equipment of all kinds, signified the life's work of the necromancer, and meant the presence of a strong summoned creature deep in sleep at the moment. None of these could be trumped by a bit of treasure. Plucking the gem of curse from the disaster energy field was not a difficult feat, but it might take away their chance to continue exploring. Who knew, they might lose the opportunity to stumble upon a treasure trove of magical gemstones. Because of this, now that would be something to regret. With one last look at the gem of curse, Lin Li pushed open the phony stone door meant as a disguise while gritting his teeth. Never did Lin Li think that there would be such a vast difference between what lay on both sides of the door. Once he pushed the door open, it was like there were two different worlds in the mineshaft, a quiet stone room on one side, and a gloomy and terrifying graveyard on the other side. Looking into the distance, all he could see were numerous tombstones and the flickering light of vigil lights, coupled with the whimpering cry of the blowing wind. It was a bone-chilling sight. As they walked into the big graveyard, Lin Li thought he had returned to the nest of Azardas, the dragon of destruction. The graveyard was nested within the spacious mountains, and one look told them that there must have been thousands of tombstones in the graveyard. In the center of these tombstones, there lay a massive ancient mausoleum. The architectural style of the mausoleum looked to be around 1,000 years old to Lin Li as he looked at it from a distance. The kingdom of the High Elves had just fallen then, and many things like the arts and architecture in Amril contained remnants of the Dark Ages. The faint light of the vigil lights hovered above the mausoleum like green fireflies. It looked like a sea of green from a distance. The wind blew high and low on the vast mountainside, forming a mix of whimpers and groans that raised the hair on their backs. As they weaved through the numerous tombstones, bits of skeletons could be seen scattered around. Their ghastly white added to the eeriness of the place. The mausoleum at the center of the graveyard was the only exception as it oozed magnificence and grandeur. Standing before it, the trio could see a faint light coming from within it. If there's really a treasure here, I'm afraid this is where it is hidden. Lin Li turned back to the other two from where he stood in front of the mausoleum. Shall we go take a look? Of course. Jirian replied without a second thought. Well, I guess we could go take a look. Izura was apprehensive, but seeing that Jirian already decided on it, he did not dare to protest for fear of displeasing the middle-aged fatty. But this door, Jirian said, feeling sheepish all of a sudden. Would it be like the one outside? This door should be fine. Lin Li scrutinized it before leading the two forward after he had ascertained that there was no mageweth laid down around it. Lin Li was correct as the door was all right. It gave way with just a light push, only creaking lightly in the process. Then, light shone through the mausoleum's door. Suddenly, all Lin Li could see was light that shone like glittering gold, just as if he was basking in the afternoon sun. My God! Lin Li was no stranger to money, for the wealth he'd held in the endless world could only be described as astronomical. In the Amril world, he enjoyed the same comfort, for he easily earned more than 1 million in gold coins at an auction selling the arcane magic potion. Jirian even had to get him a crystal card at the Glitter Gold Bank. Well, those were just numbers. Lin Li had never thought that the result could be so astounding when the numbers were translated into actual objects. The main entrance of the mausoleum led to a spacious hall around the size of a football field, with heaps of gold coins scattered around it. They varied in size, but resembled hills nonetheless. Red and green gems peeked through the sea of glittery gold, covering the hall in a dreamy light. F***CK, we've hit the jackpot. Jirian's pupils dilated slowly, his beady eyes resembling gold coins more and more as he looked at the glittery gold hills. Face flushed and breathing hastened, he would have pounced on all the treasures if it were not for Lin Li's tight hold on him. Be careful, I sense something amiss here. For some reason, Lin Li frowned as he stared upon the mountains of gold. What's wrong? Hell, I don't know, either. Maybe it was the setting, or the fact that they were currently in a spooky graveyard, but Lin Li could not help but feel unsettled. Even though there were mountains of gold right in front of him, he could not wave away the uneasiness, feeling as though they were being watched by some eyes hiding in the dark. This feeling occurred twice to him after coming into Amril, once in the Nightmare Mountains, and the other time in the Shadow Glen. While nothing terrible happened each time, Lin Li believed that his hunch was right, and the time might just not be ripe even though nothing out of the norm happened. All in all, it was an unsettling feeling. Besides, Lin Li felt a familiar presence coming from within the mountains of gold. Compared to the unsettling feeling, Lin Li was more concerned about this familiar presence. Truth be told, Lin Li had already felt this presence the moment he had broken the Song of Death and opened the tightly shut stone door. It almost felt like a blood connection that transcended even time and space, like a brand on the soul, the clarity of it undeniable no matter the distance between them. It was especially strong when Lin Li approached the mausoleum, just as though a voice right next to his ear was calling him. Lin Li, however, was unable to recall what could be so familiar that it would feel like a blood connection to him. The trace of suspicion lingered on his mind until a small noise came from deep within the mountains of gold. Be careful. Lin Li realized he was in trouble just as the noise sounded. A sudden noise coming from a mausoleum sealed for the past 1,000 years. What could it be besides the damned undead creatures? Indeed. No sooner had Lin Li's warning been issued than a heap of gold coins scattered, and a dozen skeletons wielding rusted machetes came tumbling through the gold coins in the air. Damn it, it's these things again. Lin Li felt a headache coming. He could never seem to rid himself of the undead creatures ever since the fight at the Shadow Glen. Time and again, from the Shadow Glen to Black Hills Town, and from Alana to Gerosis, the damned undead creatures pursued him relentlessly like a nightmare he could never free himself from. A pity he did not have the time to ponder further. While a dozen skeletal warriors brushed the gold coins aside and charged forward, noises could be heard from the nearby piles of gold. All of a sudden, the gold coins rained down as the noises continued like swarms of locusts chewing away at crop fields. Isra paled at the sight. Sure, it was not his first encounter with the undead, but in such numbers, that was a first. Judging from the massive size of this haul, they would be doomed if every heap of gold coins hid skeletal warriors. Retreat to the door. Lin Li prompted his dumbfounded companions as he wielded the ether staff. Oh, Isra found himself breaking out of his trance at Lin Li's warning. From their position at the center of the great hall, they would be surrounded if skeletal warriors emerged from every pile of gold. Jirian and Isra hurriedly retreated out of the mausoleum as Lin Li held the ether staff tightly, spilling verses after verses of intelligible spells. The dragon's eye atop the magic staff gleamed as a sea of light started spreading. He managed to stop the skeletal warriors that continued pressing closer with a blazing fire. After using the wall of fire spell, Lin Li took a few steps back, and quickly began his recitations with his back pressed against the cool stone wall. Ever since he mastered many core magical mantras in the Aurora Square, Lin Li was able to reach a level of great completion with his skills. Right now, he could wield any magic below level 10 with ease, be it shortening the time taken to cast it or changing its magical elements. With a little bit of risk, even a level 10 magic could be cast in the blink of an eye. Given the twisted nature with which he cast magic, conjuring flaming storm, a level 8 magic, needless to say, was as easy as breathing for him. As the spells tumbled out of his mouth swiftly, numerous fiery dragons pounced on the skeletal warriors, each brandishing their fangs and claws. 1, 2, 3. Like the falling autumn leaves, dozens of skeletal warriors had been reduced to ashes in a flash as the flaming storm continued its onslaught. So rapid was Lin Li's use of magic that the skeletal warriors were caught in the sweep of magic before they could even rise from the heaps of gold coins, which left the great hall empty in a matter of seconds. Still, Lin Li did not let his guard down one bit. At this point, Lin Li could not be more sure of the fact that this was the tomb of a top-notch necromancer. Song of Death, Mageweth, Gem of Curse, and the Disaster Energy Field, which of these could have belonged to anyone besides a powerful necromancer? How could he not expect anything besides these lowly undead creatures? Hence, Lin Li grasped the ether staff tightly with both hands. Indeed. Before Lin Li could unleash the fourth flaming storm, a noise came from the great hall, and Lin Li realized all of a sudden that the stone door opposite the great hall had opened. Damn it. Lin Li felt his heart tighten. Unsurprisingly, a sea of undead creatures poured out just as the stone door gave way. This was definitely a bone-chilling sight. Corpses, vengeful spirits, skeletal warriors, and hell ghouls. Undead creatures of all kinds came swarming in waves, drenched in a stifling death aura, looking like tiny dots from afar. Even if Lin Li had stayed a week at the Shadow Glen, where the undead roamed, and witnessed a great war of the undead creatures, He could not help but be dumbfounded when presented with this scene. While they were trumped by the ones in the Shadow Glen in terms of quantity, they easily won with their variety. This was a banquet of the undead creatures of some kind. As the door opened, every lowly undead creature you could name came pouring out of it. Is this a joke? The thought of death came to Lin Li as he stared at the throngs of undead creatures. If he'd known this would be the outcome, he would have fled with the gem of curse instead of exploring the burial grounds of a powerful necromancer. Look where this brought him. Even if he used the 1,000 miles of ice spell to expel the undead creatures, it was going to take him at least a day. Mage Felix, what do we do now? Isra swallowed saliva with difficulty, feeling regret deep in his guts. He would have slapped himself if he could. God damn it, why did he interfere with the affairs of the Guild of Magic? Great, he would be smashed into jam by the sheer number of the undead here now. Protect President Jirian and retreat outside first, I'm going to stall them. Lin Li quickly made a decision, knowing he would not be able to take on so many undead creatures. The only way out was to escape, and even that had to be done separately. Nonsense, I don't need any protection. Isra had not even had the chance to speak before Jirian had scolded from a side. However, after his scolding, he suddenly realized the condition he was in. He would be of no help even if he stayed, and thus the middle-aged fatty changed his tone. Even if you think this old man will get in your way, I can leave on my own. At least let Isra stay to help, it shouldn't be much of a problem. That's enough. How could Lin Li not understand Jirian's concern? This was really not the time to debate who should take the risk, however, and as he continued kindling the firewall, he turned to Isra, who was hesitating at the side. What are you waiting for? Take President Jirian and leave immediately. Oh, okay. As Isra stared at the undead creatures that were pressing in on them, he knew they could not delay further. Without worrying about Jirian's consent, he grabbed his robe and dragged him out of the mausoleum. Seeing the two retreat outside, Lin Li let out a breath of relief and slowly retreated as well, maintaining the firewall blocking the undead creatures all the while. However, at that moment, something unexpected occurred all of a sudden. Just as Lin Li finished the last wave of flaming storms, intending to retreat outside of the mausoleum, a black puff of smoke appeared in the center of the great hall. Lin Li whipped his head around at hearing a noise, only to find that the stone door had shut tightly. Lin Li paled at this moment. His escape route was gone as the army of undead creatures closed in on him. Bad things really came in threes. F***ck, you really want to trap me in here, huh? Tightly grasping the ether staff, Lin Li began his recitation yet again. Just as the first syllable rang out, a tall figure appeared from the puff of black smoke. He looked to be a young man in his 20s, with his black cape and a pale face as well as the air of elegance radiating from him. He looked to be a high elven aristocrat from the Dark Ages. How can my luck be this bad? This air of elegance only served run a chill down his limbs. Lin Li clearly remembered that 2 months ago in the Shadow Glen, he had seen the same air of elegance which, correct, belonged to the high-ranking vampire who had died a mysterious death in the end. The same gory stench, and the same eerie blood-red pupils. This dude had to be a true high-ranking vampire. I'm in big trouble. Lin Li could not help but gulp as he thought of how powerful a high-ranking vampire could be. This high-ranking vampire could well be the leader of the undead creatures. As he arrived atop the black fog, the great hall quieted down in an instant. The corpses stopped their growling, and the vengeful spirits ceased their painful whimpers. Even the skeletal warriors wielding their machetes stilled as if held by an unknown force, standing frozen in their spots, and only the lights in their hollow eyes continued flickering. The death aura coming from the high-ranking vampire was incomparably powerful, just like the legendary aura of a dragon, so powerful it was that Lin Li found himself gasping for breath. At this point, he realized that this vampire was so powerful that it was probably above the one back at the Shadow Glen. Despite mastering many core magical mantras and attaining the 16th level which was coveted by every archmage, he was probably still no match for the powerful death energy. At this point, all Lin Li could do was to continue his recitation, praying that the 1,000 miles of ice spell could buy him some time. However, at this point, The black-cloaked high-ranking vampire did something beyond Lin Li's wildest dreams. He lowered his head, his pale face filled with loyalty and passion, and then, he kneeled down. "The great immortal king, you have finally arrived." "Huh?" Lin Li almost choked on his saliva out of shock. What's going on now? Wait a second. The great immortal king? Is this another muddle dude? Lin Li remembered clearly that a few days ago, in the Aurora Square, the mage named Garrett had called him the mighty immortal king as well, even going as far as to say that he would wield skeletons as his staff and be crowned king once again. Indeed, it was almost the same scenario as the one now, and the same look of loyalty and passion, rivaling the most devoted followers of Brilliant's shrine. Do I really look like the immortal king? Lin Li touched his face unconsciously, thinking to himself, am I really that unlucky? O mighty immortal king, on behalf of the Luz Ferrata family, I pledge our allegiance to you. As Lin Li remained doubtful about the situation, the vampire, kneeling on a single knee, carved a line on his forehead with a long and sharp nail. Blood trickled out of the gash. What the hell? Lin Li's eyes bulged at the sight. While he knew little about vampires, he had heard Anduin mention on occasions that they usually pledged their loyalty using a blood oath like this. What the high-ranking vampire was presenting now was a blood oath in its most complete form. With fresh blood as a guide and with life bearing witness, he laid down a vow to never betray. Such was the blood oath of a vampire. Lin Li froze in shock, for he knew that if he walked over and painted the blood on his forehead with his finger, it would seal the blood oath. This high-ranking vampire would become his most loyal servant, so fiercely loyal that he would give his life up for Lin Li without a second thought if he was asked to. At this moment, Lin Li really felt as though he were in a dream. For some reason, he had barged into a mausoleum and stumbled upon unimaginable wealth presented in the form of gold coins. All of this would have been thrilling enough, but little had he known that a high-ranking vampire at least level 18 would pledge his allegiance to him using a blood oath. How can I do that? Lin Li said half-heartedly as he had already proceeded to dip his finger into the blood. Not once did he stop to think if this could be a trap, as there was no need to do so. There were countless undead creatures in this great hall, and with a high-ranking vampire at least at level 18, why would they risk the vampire's freedom with a blood oath when they could destroy him so easily? As Lin Li felt the boiling blood on his fingertip, he confirmed his suspicions. This had to be a blood oath. The reason was simple. As an undead creature, a vampire's blood was unbearably cold. Only when they made a blood oath did their blood boil with their soul fire, just as the blood on his fingertip did. The boiling blood felt like a blazing ball of fire on his forehead. Before Lin Li could react, millions of fragmented memories formed a wave and flooded his mind. Voices and scenes, old and new, came together in a flurry, fighting a war in his mind. Amidst the chaos, the fog shrouding one particular voice and scene slowly disappeared, just like dust-sealed scrolls being revealed to him. Lin Li knew that this was the soul fire of the vampire, encompassing all his memories from the day he became an undead creature to this day as he offered his soul fire to seal the blood oath. The boiling drop of blood was brimming with all of these memories. Countless memory fragments pieced themselves together. At long last, Lin Li let out a long breath of relief. Scanning the many undead creatures in the great hall, he saw that not a trace of violence and murder resided in their eyes, only compliance and respect. Lin Li could even tell that they would comply with any of his orders. At last, he let his gaze fall upon the high-ranking vampire. Norfeller, could you tell me about the origins of this mausoleum? Norfeller was the name of the high-ranking vampire. Not only did Lin Li come to know of the vampire's origins from the fragments of memory, he also knew that this vampire was half human and half high elf. Born in the legendary Dark Ages, Norfeller had even once served as the personal guard of a high elf aristocrat. As you wish, master, replied Norfeller. He remained on a single knee, compliance and respect evident in his voice. His deep and raspy voice brought them back to 1,200 years ago, when the high elf still ruled the world and Osric reigned over the Felon Kingdom. This reign and dictatorship, however, came with stir of a brewing storm. The human army had destroyed 6 sky castles, and the High Elves were about to lose their last weapon. Naturally, the High Elves aristocrats started to panic, and the aristocrat Norfeller served was no exception. According to Norfeller, the aristocrat was named Giovanni. He ruled over the lands south of the breezy plains. He lost everything he had in the war, and had no choice but to escape to Felon, where he begged his half-brother Osric to offer him protection. Sadly, the once decorated High Lord was now utterly devoted to building a mausoleum in his old age. Perhaps it was an understanding of his plight, or maybe he had been inspired by Osric, but after a night of pondering, the distraught Giovanni approached Osric and asked for the piece of land by the Demon Fall Valley. Osric did not refuse him, and recalled the magic legion that resided at the Demon Fall Valley that very evening. From then on, Giovanni lived in the Demon Fall Valley, building himself a mage tower and sending countless slaves to dig the grounds to build him a true underground palace. Following that, he began his research on necromagic. Necromagic was a taboo amongst the life-loving High Elves, who thought it a belittlement of life. In those times, any High Elf who practiced necromagic was treated like a heretic and burnt to death. Hence, Giovanni's research on necromagic remained a secret to everybody but his personal guard Norfeller. Not even his half-brother Osric knew about it. Giovanni's research lasted 10 years. As time went by, the human army had already taken over vast areas. The sound of horns came ringing from the borders of the Felon kingdom, and as the ruler Osric grew friendlier each day, the people knew that the High Lord's time was nearly up. The human army finally invaded the breezy plains that autumn. In that same autumn, High Lord Osric also came to the end of his time. The raging fires of war reached Alana from the breezy plains as Osric's two sons battled each other for the throne each day, even as they lived in fear of the human army. At that time, Giovanni did the unthinkable. He turned himself into an undead creature. Or, more accurately, a lich. Giovanni buried the brand of his soul into his life case, hence obtaining immortality through an unorthodox method. After turning himself into a lich, Giovanni did not attempt to resist the human army. Instead, he quickly moved all that he had into the underground palace. The day he was done, he killed all the slaves with necromagic, and turned them all into his most loyal servants. Due to his loyalty, Norfeller was turned into a high-ranking vampire who retained his memory and intelligence, and served as the right-hand man of Giovanni, who commanded the army of undead creatures. What about now? Where is Giovanni? Lin Li could not help his suspicion upon hearing this. Lord Giovanni has already died. The brand of his soul had already disappeared 1,200 years ago when he moved into the underground palace, while Norfeller's voice was still filled with the same air of compliance and respect. A trace of his complicated feelings slipped through at the mention of his previous master. Dead? Lin Li could not control his shock at this. Wasn't that too fast? Didn't he just turn into an immortal lich? Lin Li clearly remembered Anduin telling him that every lich lived almost eternally, and even if they were killed, they could revive themselves with the brand of their soul that remained in the life case. Even if Giovanni was a freshly created lich, surely he was better than that. Yes. Norfeller nodded as he remained kneeling. As Giovanni retreated into the underground palace with his army of the undead, he found an altar situated right at the center of it. This altar had been already present as the slaves built the underground palace, but as they had mostly been peasants from various tribes, none of them knew what the altar represented. Giovanni was the only one who knew. Just as he set foot into the underground palace, Giovanni felt a great force of divine power coming from the center of the altar. This was undoubtedly a cruel joke for the newly born lich. Such divine power was hidden in an underground palace made for undead creatures. It felt like being in a tank with a ball of fire. Perhaps he had been too sure of himself, or maybe he did not want future troubles knocking at his door. No matter what it had been, Giovanni made a decision to check out the interior of altar upon seeing it for the first time. Norfeller recalled that Giovanni had gone in alone, not a single underling followed, not even the most trusted Norfeller. The accident happened then. Norfeller heard a cry an hour after Giovanni went into the altar before he saw Giovanni rush out, covered in flames. Till this day, Norfeller could recall the terror of the flames, just like that of the legendary Judgment Day. Even a spark of that fire could destroy an undead creature, and numerous undead turned into ashes, just as Giovanni emerged from the altar. If not for his quick thinking and flying away after turning into a bat, Norfeller would not be speaking to Lin Li today. Just like Lin Li, Norfeller had initially thought that Giovanni would survive the divine fire as he had already turned into a lich. Soon, however, he could clearly feel that the divine fire was not just burning Giovanni's body, but also his soul. Even the brand of his soul locked in the life case was not spared. Sadly, as Norfeller realized that, the last bit of the brand of Giovanni's soul had already been destroyed. Thus, nobody knew what Giovanni saw inside the altar, and nobody knew what was the fire that could parallel the flames of Judgment Day. Norfeller only knew that Giovanni's dying words were, 1,200 years later, the immortal king will open this sealed door. Norfeller, you must follow him and serve him. Hence, Norfeller waited 1,200 years in this underground palace until Lin Li came through the mausoleum's door. Lin Li brushed his nose without a word, thinking to himself, F***ck, how can there be such a coincidence? Lin Li still remained in shock as the number of questions in his mind only grew even after Norfeller told him everything he knew. Why did Giovanni study necromagic? Why did he build the underground palace? Why were there so many things hidden in the altar, and why did it shoot out such powerful divine fire? Who was this damned immortal king, and why did he find the issue revolving around him all the time? Lin Li found himself out of breath as the questions weighed down on him like boulders. He found everything about the immortal king terrifying as it resembled a trap someone had meticulously laid down for him. Damn it, who has so much time in the world to be after me? Be prepared to feel my wrath. Lin Li never thought he would be so vexed standing in the midst of so many undead creatures that this would be the first thing he said. Norfeller remained on one knee, not a single movement on his sculpted features and pale face. It was as though his new master's outburst did not affect him at all. Damn it, really? Lin Li quickly calmed down after his huge outburst, and no trace of irritation remained on his face when he lifted his head. All right, Norfeller, bring me to the altar. As you wish. While Norfeller's voice brimmed with compliance and respect, he could not hide the tiny bit of worry in his blood-red eyes. However, Master, the strength hidden in the altar is way too strong, and I may not be able to protect you. Don't worry about that. Lin Li smiled as he said something even the high-ranking vampire could not comprehend. If my predictions are correct, I may meet an old friend in there. Signs of doubt appeared on Norfeller's pale face, but he did not question Lin Li further. With a wave of his hand, countless undead creatures retreated like a receding tide. In a flash, all that was left in the great hall, besides the heaps of gold coins, were Lin Li and Norfeller. Please follow me, Master. The black-caped Norfeller looked like a ghost with his light and fast steps as he walked ahead. Lin Li studied the vast underground palace as he casually followed behind him. Giovanni was a crafty fellow indeed, if not for Norfeller leading the way. Lin Li would never have guessed that the great hall, covered in gold coins, was only the entrance to the underground palace. The underground palace lay behind a trapdoor, and behind the door was a corridor filled with traps. Even Norfeller had to slow down as he had to pause and disarm a trap at every step. A quick count told Lin Li that they had to stop at least 80 times across the distance of less than 500 meters. Lin Li broke out in cold sweat as they continued. He was thankful that Norfeller made a blood oath with him as he would surely not survive here alone. The traps laid down in this corridor could only be described as despicable, arrows hidden under tiles, poison smeared on the handrails, and others were only child's play compared to what lay ahead. Lin Li loosed a long breath of relief after passing through the corridor, only to hear Norfeller warn him that a certain tile ahead would activate a teleportation portal upon contact. Lin Li could not help himself anymore as he gritted his teeth and cursed, asshole. Soon, however, Lin Li realized he was too quick to curse. A spacious stone room lay ahead of the corridor. Lin Li saw rows of neatly arranged shelves as he peeked in through the door, which was left ajar. Books of various kinds filled the shelves. They looked to be remnants of the Dark Ages from their appearance. Lin Li could not help feeling excited as he thought of Giovanni's royal status. For all he knew, these could be precious works. Just as he wanted to ask Norfeller if there was anything on Osric in there, the high-ranking vampire introduced respectfully, "Master, this is the underground dungeon. There are 3 abyssal demons here." Lin Li all but coughed out blood. Damn it, Giovanni must have had nothing better to do. Why would he turn a study into a dungeon and place abyssal demons here? He might as well have kept a demon high lord inside. "Master, what's wrong?" Norfeller asked concernedly after seeing the change in Lin Li's expression. "Nothing. Carry on." Yes, the human and vampire moved on. After an hour in this underground palace filled with traps, Lin Li finally saw an exit. There was a winding staircase leading upwards outside the exit. Lin Li could clearly see flowing larvae at the end of the staircase, with sparks flying up occasionally, and an altar glowing blindingly. "Master, we're here." Norfeller stood outside terrified as he unknowingly cowered. As an undead creature, such pure holy light was like poison for him, and even a drop could destroy his body as well as his soul fire. "Okay, you go rest somewhere. I'll take a look." Lin Li knew what the holy light meant for Norfeller, and let him rest in the underground palace instead of making him lead the way any further. Instead, he carried on up the winding stairs by himself. Well, of course, the familiar presence became stronger the nearer Lin Li got to it. At this point, Lin Li could clearly tell that it came from the altar. The altar was not far ahead. It was situated on top of the flowing larvae. A glowing path lined with fragmented moonstones lay in front of the altar, and from a distance, the altar was bathed in a holy light. Lin Li stood quietly with his palms drenched in sweat as he clearly knew what the holy light meant even though Norfeller and Giovanni did not. Standing there, he could even clearly hear a voice in his head. "Long time no see." Yeah, long time no see. Lin Li walked on the moonstone path with a smile on his face. The blinding lights and flowing larvae ceased to exist in his mind, and all that was left was the holy light as well as the voice coming from the depths of his soul. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1. Lin Li thought he heard a loud bang the moment he touched the altar, though he was not sure. All he remembered was that in a split second, countless sounds rang in his ear and countless lights flashed before his eyes. While it was gone in a flash, it felt like years to Lin Li, and when he finally opened his eyes again, there was a smear of light on his palm. Then, everything quieted down again. The boiling larvae stopped flowing, and the blinding lights dimmed. The world lost all color in that short time as though something had sucked everything from it. Everything disappeared into the smear of light on Lin Li's palm. Perhaps only Lin Li knew what happened in that short amount of time. Light escaped even as he slowly clasped his hands together, and Lin Li could clearly see that he was holding a bolt shining as brightly as the sun in his hands. Blinding holy light spilled from the bolt, pure and strong like the first ray of sunlight when the sun rose in the east. Lin Li could not help breaking into a smile as he held the bolt in his hand, for he knew that hardly any undead creature stood a chance against him now, not even Sendros from the legendary realm or the 2 undead lords from the Shadowglen. They were no match for the meteorite debris no matter how powerful they were. That was right. The bolt Lin Li held was one of the 7 pieces of meteorite debris. A certain legend said that it could slice through the deepest dark and destroy the worst of evils. It was the symbol of purity and holiness, holy light. A legend in the endless world said that God combined earth, water, fire, wind, light, and darkness together and forged 7 bolts with 7 elemental alignments. With the Milky Way as the string to the bow made of the crescent moon, God forged the stars of fury that could destroy heaven and earth. In the legend, God could destroy the stars in the sky with just one hit using the stars of fury. If that happened to the stars, what about undead creatures? Lin Li suddenly understood Giovanni's sudden death as he held the holy light in his hands. Honestly, this asshole had terrible luck. After putting in so much effort to build himself an underground palace and turning himself into a lich to live out his days as an immortal, he unexpectedly found holy light the day he moved into his underground palace. To top it off, this guy did not know what was good for him. and tried to investigate the holy light himself. The light held the most powerful and pure divine power. It was so strong that the power of the Pope of the Leaden Kingdom, who prided himself on being the most pious man of Anril, probably did not come close to the power of this bolt. Even the most powerful evil High Lord would tremble at a blow from this holy light, much less a newly turned lich. Serves this guy right. Lin Li turned to the stairs, without looking back after gloating. The altar dimmed behind him, and the flowing larvae writhed as though losing all its life force. He knew that this was because he took away the holy light which served as their life source. The amount of fear in Norfeller's gaze subtly increased as Lin Li returned to the underground palace. He could clearly sense that this young mage held enough power to destroy him a flash. "Master, are you all right?" Norfeller sounded terrified. "I'm well," Lin Li nodded, casting a last glance at the altar behind him. "Never been better." "Congratulations, Master." "All right, Norfeller, I have been gone long enough. We must hurry back, for I dare not imagine what will happen to the underground palace if we don't." "Huh?" Norfeller was visibly confused. Soon, however, he realized what it was all about. The clinking sounds of digging could be heard just as they returned to the great hall filled with gold coins, an angry bellowing occasionally piercing through the noise. "Damn it, all you good-for-nothing fools, why are you taking so long to dig through this rotten mausoleum? Even rats can do it faster." "President Jirian, calm down, we will save Mage Felix for sure." "God, Isra, call the mages and blow up this place." "I don't believe 1,000 mages wouldn't do the trick." Norfeller gulped as he pictured 1,000 mages blowing down the doors of the mausoleum. "He's true to his word, open the door quickly." "Yes." Norfeller hurriedly uttered a spell before the tightly shut door gave way with a clicking sound. Then, familiar faces appeared before Lin Li. "President Jirian, what if we hurt Felix by getting so many mages at once?" Isra barely finished, before he paused, seeing the Felix they were trying to save standing there smiling. Not a hair out of place, totally not what you would expect from a person who had just escaped countless undead creatures. "Ha ha ha, I knew you would be alright, and I was right." Jirian pounced on him before Lin Li could speak. Despite his boasting, the middle-aged fatty could not help but blurt out, "How was it?" "Are you really fine?" "I'm fine." "That's great, that's—" Jirian froze before he could finish his words as he saw the pale-faced young man standing behind Felix. Norfeller had yet to reveal his inhuman form when the two escaped the mausoleum, so Jirian did not know that this pale-faced young man was a level 18 high-ranking vampire. This did not affect Jirian's judgment as he felt his heart jump at the powerful death aura the moment he set eyes on Norfeller. Felix, this is?" "He's Norfeller, my new bodyguard." The vague explanation made Jirian and Isra look at each other and roll their eyes as they thought that nobody could lie through their teeth so obviously like Lin Li. "A bodyguard? We went in with you. Since when did you have a bodyguard we don't know of?" Of course, they could not say this. Not only could they not speak of it, they had to smile and eagerly turn to this creepy guy emitting a strong death aura. "Norfeller, I see, it's a pleasure to meet you." Lin Li was no longer concerned over the two humans meeting the high-ranking vampire. He was more caught up with gold coins in the Great Hall, and how was he going to take care of that? There was really too many of them, and it would take days even with all the men Jerosis had on his hand. "Right, Norfeller." Lin Li decided to turn to Norfeller after some thought. "What orders do you have, Master?" "The undead creatures you command, can they walk out of the mausoleum?" "They can." Norfeller gave a resolute nod. "As long as there is no sunlight, they can head anywhere." "That's great, I have a small task for them." Lin Li lowered his head and whispered something into Norfeller's ear. "Yes, Master." Norfeller turned back to the mausoleum, leaving Jirian and Isra, who both sported a blank look behind. "He's gone, what are you staring at?" "Damn it, you rascal, tell me honestly, is he an undead creature?" "What undead creature? I don't know what you're saying." "Don't you dare deny it, he was oozing such strong death aura, with his red eyes, he must be a death knight or a vampire." "Do you take me for a fool?" All Alright, you can take him for an undead creature, but he's an obedient one, Lin Li placated Jirian vaguely before turning to the innocent workers with a smile. Thank you all for your help, you must be tired, so go home and rest. I'll treat you all one day when we're back in Gerosis, my heartfelt thanks to you all. The workers were taken by surprise at his words, and the weak-hearted ones even felt their legs turning into jelly as they walked out of the mine. They looked at each other in disbelief as they couldn't believe the man who praised them with a smile was Mage Felix of the Emerald Tower. Goodness, I must write this down for my kids when we get back. Lin Li did not know how emotional the workers were, but he knew Jirian was. Quick, tell me what was in that mausoleum and what you have got up your sleeve. Why did you chase away the workers? How am I going to bring the gold coins back without them? Don't worry about the gold coins, I found a solution. Just get everyone home and get someone to collect the coins at the entrance of the mine at noon. As for what happened in the mausoleum, that's a long story. You saw Norfeller earlier, right? Well, he's one hell of a guy. Lin Li ushered Jirian out of the underground palace as he slowly gave an account of what had happened inside. Of course, because of various reasons, most of it were half-truths. The meteorite debris, for example, remained a secret as this concerned Lin Li's origins, and Lin Li was still plagued with questions that he had yet to find the answers to. Nothing happened after they returned to the Demon Fall Valley, and a quiet morning passed just like that. Only when afternoon rolled around did Norfeller appear in Lin Li's tent like a ghost. After hearing his update about the transportation, Lin Li went to Jirian to tell him to get people to move the gold coins to Gerosis. He had to admit that Jirian was very generous this time. He promised the various leaders a 20% cut at first, but nobody took it to heart as they knew how shrewd Jirian was. It was a blessing as long as he did not turn to them for help. How could they expect to gain anything from him? In the end, he fulfilled his promise after the gold coins were hauled over, and gave the happy 16 leaders their cut straight away at the Demon Fall Valley. During this moment of happiness, however, some people noticed something was off. Every single one of these gold coins was drenched in a thick death aura, and greenish liquid could be seen on the coin's surface. As they thought about how Mage Felix had sent everyone away while mysteriously sending these gold coins up to the mine's entrance, they realized that even a fool would know what happened. As they came to this realization, almost every leader trembled at the thought. Damn it, this monster. No wonder he was so powerful at such a young age and could kill without batting an eye. It turned out he secretly dealt with undead creatures, and could even command them. With such a monster living in the Emerald Tower, who would dare go against them? Lin Li had long predicted the people's reaction. This was exactly what he wanted for them to be unsure of him and fear him. This was the only way he could curb the ambitions of Gerosis' 16 leaders and protect the Emerald Tower, for he would soon leave this place. Early next day, when everyone was still asleep, Lin Li donned his robe and called upon Norfeller, who had stood outside the tent guarding the whole night. The pair quietly returned to the underground palace, and retrieved the gem of curse which kept the disaster energy field going. Then, without alerting anyone, they swiftly returned to the misty Gerosis on a carriage. The Emerald Tower was empty save for a few young apprentices, and Kevin, who stayed behind to guard the place. Kevin yawned as he perused the level certifications that had just been submitted, and was visibly stunned when he saw Lin Li walk in. Uncle Jirian didn't return with you? Nope, Lin Li said as he casually pulled over a chair. Your uncle said that the Demon Fall Valley is a pretty good place, so he's got plans to stay. Alright, enough of the jokes. Lin Li turned serious after cracking a joke at Jirian's expense. Your uncle had me tell you to send some horses over to the Demon Fall Valley. He's got some stuff he wants to bring back. What stuff? Some gold coins, maybe around 6 million. Kevin hissed, drawing a cold breath. What's wrong? You guys dug into a gold mine? No, we dug into a mausoleum. Kevin shook his head after being stunned for about a minute. With a face full of disbelief, he called over an apprentice, and got him to rent a fleet of carriages from the station. Sigh, I knew it, something was bound to happen if the two of you went together. My God, 6 million gold coins, how are we going to spend it? The two were chatting away when they heard the galloping of horses from a distance. Lin Li looked out, and saw a few carriages outside the door of the Emerald Tower, a dozen black-cloaked mages stepping out of them. Amongst them was an old man with a beard the color of snow. His name was Herza, and Lin Li had met him a few times in Alana. "Well, Kevin, I've got to leave." Lin Li stood up and dusted off his rune cloak while forcing a smile as he approached the door. "Good morning, Mage Herza, welcome to the Emerald Tower." "Good morning, Mage Velik." Herza could not help showing a satisfied smile as he looked at Lin Li. As the organizer of the trial, he had uncovered the most talented young mage in the whole of Felon Kingdom, maybe even in the whole of Anrel. This was a happy occasion for anyone. Besides, this young mage had gained authority over a guild of magic because of this trial, and this alone would have given Herza enough credit. While it did not seem like much now, under the guidance of this powerful mage, this guild of magic would surely hold an important position in a couple of decades, and Lin Li would have been greatly indebted to him by then. Herza could not help lamenting as he eyed the messy guild hall. Jirian was unbelievably lucky indeed. After decades of mediocre work helming the Emerald Tower, he found a monstrous talent in his old age. This was not your everyday luck. Herza frowned as the thought of Jirian struck him. He came as a representative of the Supreme Council, so how dared this fatty hide instead of welcoming him? This was utter disregard for the authority of the Supreme Council, and this alone would have guaranteed Jirian insufferable consequences in other circumstances. Well, so be it. This fatty has always been up to no good, and there's no point getting angry over it. Besides, Velik hailed from the Emerald Tower, so Herza would let this pass, for his sake. Herza never thought that somebody else would harp over this matter even though he had let it slide. As Herza walked into the guild hall, a middle-aged mage said unhappily, "Where's Jirian? Why didn't he come out to welcome us?" The middle-aged mage's tone sounded accusing as though Jirian should be damned to hell for not coming out to welcome them, and a sudden chill spread in the guild hall as a result. While Lin Li kept his smile, he was visibly mocking the middle-aged mage as he asked, "I wonder what's your name, Sir Mage?" "Ha ha ha, my apologies, Mage Velik, look at me being old and muddle-headed, I forgot to introduce him to you." Herza knew something was going to happen as he saw the change in Lin Li's expression, for he was aware of Lin Li's personality and what he would do to this middle-aged mage. Luckily, he was well over 100 years old, and immediately appeased them the moment something was off. "This is Mage Moke, the most respected inscriber of the Supreme Council. When the Mage Tower at Breezy Plains is finished, he will be in charge of laying down the Mageweth. If you have any ideas, now is the time to discuss it." Herza resolved the awkward atmosphere with the hidden meaning in his words, warning Lin Li against acting rashly. Mage Moke was not to be trifled with, for Lin Li would be in trouble if the former tampered with the new Mageweth. "Mage Moke? I see, it is a pleasure to meet you." Lin Li backed off on Herza's account, but his half-hearted smile remained. "I must trouble you with the Mageweth, then." "Humph, don't worry about that." Unfortunately, the middle-aged mage did not buy that, and moved to scan the guild hall once again with an icy huff. "Incompetent as I am, I would never lay down such a lousy Mageweth that can be burned down by anyone," he said with an even bigger air of distaste. "I see." Lin Li said nothing more before turning to Herza with a smile. "Mage Herza, when can we leave?" "Any time." Herza heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing that the prickly Lin Li chose not to make matters worse, for he did not know if he could handle it if Lin Li chose to do otherwise. "So soon?" Lin Li was surprised at Herza's words, for he'd originally thought that the old mage had important matters to see to seeing as he had made a trip to Gerosis. He was shocked that Herza would leave so quickly without so much as a greeting. This was a routine visit to announce the Supreme Council's decision to Jirian as well as to bring you along to the Breezy Plains. "Seeing as Jirian isn't here, I shall save myself the trouble. If there is nothing else, Velik, we can leave this instant. I will fill you in on the details as we go along." Alright, Lin Li thought back to the days at the Demon Fall Valley. Knowing he had nothing else to see to, he agreed with a nod of his head, and called in Norfeller, who remained outside the door standing guard. "Norfeller, go pack our stuff, we'll be leaving for the Breezy Plains in half an hour." "Yes, master." Herza's expression changed as Norfeller entered. Hell, Herza almost cursed in shock. Damn it, what is this rascal up to? It has only been a few days, and now he has a vampire as a servant? And a high-ranking vampire at that. Herza had seen more than the average man at his age of over 100 years old, and already knew that Norfeller had to be a true high-ranking vampire when he entered the guild hall. Furthermore, if he had guessed correctly, the vampire had to be well over level 18 too. Felix, Herza gulped. This is my new bodyguard. I heard he's not bad. Herza almost lost it at that. A new bodyguard? You heard he's not bad? Damn it, how patronizing can you get? At least come up with a better story, will you? Alas, Lin Li was too preoccupied with bidding farewell to Kevin to come up with something better. Well, Kevin, this is really goodbye. Lin Li tried to make his smile lighter as he patted Kevin on the shoulders. When your uncle is back, tell him to stay out of trouble. I'll try to get the antidote out as quickly as I can. After nagging some more, Lin Li left the Emerald Tower somewhat reluctantly, and boarded the carriage sent by the Supreme Council. With a crack of the whip, the carriage started moving, and headed northward to the breezy plains in the afternoon sun. Herza sat next to Lin Li as he introduced the sights outside the window as well as the situation in the breezy plains. He also told him about the provisions the Supreme Council gave him this time. Without a doubt, the Supreme Council was very generous this time indeed. Besides the necessary provisions, they assigned an archmage to come by later to assist the president on matters of the council. Is he sent to monitor me? Lin Li frowned rather discreetly upon hearing this. Duland lay at the northern tip of the breezy plains near the flower forest. This chaotic town was home to the poor, soldiers, and the most evil. Every second, a life was lost here, every second, a crime was committed here. Only the truly evil could survive in such a wretched town. Without a doubt, Kaman was a true evil. Of course, he would never admit it himself, for he had always prided himself on being a philanthropist who had provided employment opportunities to the masses, thus allowing them to feed their families. The ones preaching benevolence and morals could never contribute the same. Few remained unaware of Kaman, and few had yet to cross paths with him in this town. The middle-aged fatty in his 40s looked anything but special, but he was the true mastermind behind the Rosen Union. This union controlled more than 80% of the stone trade in Duland, and many products were made with their stone. In recent years especially, the Rosen Union was taking bigger deals and had ventured into every industry possible, snowballing their fortune as a result. There were even rumors that they had collaborated with the Glitter Gold Trade Union, which would allow them to monopolize more than half of Duland's industries in the near future. Of course, these were merely rumors, and nobody could prove them. One thing for sure, though, was that Kaman had been in a good mood these days, and it had nothing to do with the Glitter Gold Trade Union. It was because Kaman recently discovered a mineral vein in Black Hills town, and after sending experienced miners to check it out, he now knew that it was brimming with adamantine. This had kept him happy for days. Kaman had always been in the mining business, and he knew the stone trade better than anyone else. He was well aware of the fact that the price of refined iron ore had been increasing, and had nearly doubled since the previous year. If this newly discovered mineral vein could be fully exploited, the Rosen Union would enjoy great profits. Moreover, Kaman clearly recalled that at a banquet a few days ago, Castellan Gamak had sent people to him, requesting a batch of refined iron ore. If he used this opportunity wisely, he could get on the Castellan's good side, and his business in Duland would be smooth sailing in the future. Kaman had been making plans to start the mining. Black Hills town was a small place with only a few hundred families, which mostly consisted of farmers. Kaman had found out that the owner of the mineral vein was a wretched aristocratic descendant, so impoverished that he barely had food to eat. As long as Kaman gave him some money, getting the title deed should not be much of a problem. Kaman did not give it much thought, as a wretched aristocrat descendant posed no threat to him given the influence the Rosen Union held today. There were numerous ways he could use to force him to cough out the title deed as long as he wished to. The real concern was mining, for it required a large number of people, and the miners he had on hand were insufficient. Moreover, they were demanding when it came to their pay and benefits, which made Kamon's blood boil when he thought about it. Damn it, I'm nice enough to give you a job, how dare you clamor for benefits? When my slaves arrive, I'll send you home unemployed. Guess I'll have to hurry the other side once I get my hands on the title deed. The sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the study as Kamon silently pondered. President Kamon, we've got a situation. Kamon frowned as he heard the frantic noise. None of these guys were good for anything. If he panicked over such trivial matters, how was he going to deal with anything substantial? It seemed like he was going to have to teach them a lesson one of these days. Damn it, shut up. Kamon glared at the guy angrily. Barbead, are you possessed? What are you screaming for? No. President Kamon, the middle-aged Barbead rushed into the study and panted for a minute before steadying his breath. We've really got a situation. Well, what is it? Kamon frowned as he stared at his incompetent subordinate. Is it trouble over at Black Hills Town? Why yes. Barbead gulped and eyed Kamon nervously. Sorry, President Kamon, I couldn't get the job done. You didn't get the title deed? Kamon was shocked. This had been the easiest part of his plan. A few thousand gold coins could have easily settled a wretched fallen noble, so how did he not get the title deed? Did this guy really try and ask for a higher price? Well, if that is the case, he can't blame me for not showing mercy. Sorry, President Kamon. Save that for the grave. What I want to know is the reason you failed to bring me the title deed. Was it the price, or some unreasonable conditions? Anyway, Barbead, you'd better give me a good reason. Well, you see, President Kamon, I went to Black Hills Town like you told me to, and found the fallen noble called Alabam to discuss the purchase of the title deed. Barbead continued nervously as Kamon's gaze forced him to. Who knew that when we found him in the inn, he told us that somebody had already bought the title deed, a young man from Jerosis, who was going to build a tower of some sort on the land. Hell, Kamon nearly exploded at this. He would have slapped Barbead if he had not been controlling his anger. You fool, if he sold it to somebody else, couldn't you have bought it back? Damn it, do you know how much the mineral vein is worth? Well, let me tell you, it's worth at least 2 million gold coins and an opportunity to get into the Castellan's good books. How dare you run back like this? Are you really a fool? President Kamon, listen to me. Alright, I would love to hear your explanation. We found the guy from Jerosis, but he said he would not sell it no matter the price. Damn it, he's too much. Kamon was so worked up he was practically trembling. Never had he thought that anyone in Duland would disregard the Rosen Union like that. Damn it, no matter the price? I would love to see who has the guts to say that. Kamon stormed out of the study, and called a few dozen of his most trusted men over. Even the newest addition among them had been with him for 5 years. There were level 12 warriors, level 13 bandits, and even a level 11 mage. When money could not solve the issue, he usually sent these men to settle the purchase. Everyone, bring along your weapons, we're going to Black Hills Town. Yes. A dozen carriages set off towards Black Hills Town, leaving a trail of dust in their wake. Look, President, come on, Barbead pointed at a distant slope as the carriage neared the town's entrance. They're over there. Yes, I see it. Kamon looked where Barbead pointed from afar. There was about a dozen men, both young and old, and a black-cloaked young man who seemed to be discussing something with the old man by his side. Felek, have you really decided on this? Herza frowned. To be honest, he could not understand why this young man chose to build the tower in a place like this. It seemed like a joke to Herza. What did Breezy Plains lack that made this young man finally decide on such a lowly and secluded place like Black Hills Town? Yes, it's quieter here, Lin Li smiled as he gave a casual excuse. Herza shook his head, having given up on persuading Lin Li. Moke, however, looked on in disdain. Ridiculous. Shut up, Moke. Herza was perplexed. Out of all the mages in the Supreme Council, why did he choose to bring this idiot along? It definitely did not help that he kept targeting Felek along the way. Damn it, does he not have brains? A young man who won the trials must be something. Just you wait, when Felix gets his revenge on you, I'll definitely be laughing on the side, you idiot. Mage Moke, why don't you tell us what's so ridiculous so that we can all laugh at it together? Lin Li was used to Moke's targeting him by now, and was not angered by it. He only silently plotted to get back at him. Herza was comforted by the fact that Moke had heeded his advice and toned down his attitude towards the prickly young mage. It all became easier from there. Since the president had made his decision, Herza gave up on persuading him. He called upon a mage to notify the Supreme Council to send a team of workers who would arrive 3 days later so that they could start building the tower. At this moment, Kaman alighted from the carriage and rushed over with a group of men. President Kaman, that's the guy who bought the title deed. Oh? From afar, Kaman saw that the young man was in his 20s and looked prim and proper, nothing like a shrewd businessman. It should not be difficult to settle the deal with him. The old man on his side looked shrewd, however, he would have to find a way to distract him, or he might give the young man some ideas. After pondering silently, Kaman forced out a welcoming smile. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Allow me to introduce myself, I am the president of the Rosen Union. Could you all spare me some time to discuss a deal we would all benefit from? President Kaman? I see, nice to meet you. Just as Kaman thought, this well-mannered young man was easy to speak to. No sooner had Kaman finished his self-introduction than the young man gave him a warm smile. Damn it, thank God, I came here myself. If I left it to that fool, God knows what would happen to this deal. Kaman was still silently celebrating before he heard the young man say, My apologies, though. I will not sell you the title deed, so I'm afraid there is nothing left to discuss here. The welcoming smile was frozen on Kaman's face. As a successful businessman himself, he had seen his fair share of utter disregard. However, he only realized today that he was nothing compared to this young man. Utter disregard, you say? This young man right here embodied it. All right, President Kaman. If there is nothing else to discuss, I shall not delay your time further. Kaman was in a bind. How does 5,000 gold coins sound, or 6,000, no, 7,000? You must know that 7,000 is not a small amount, you may never get this amount again if you miss this opportunity. Why don't you leave this money for yourself instead? Well, don't blame me for not showing you mercy, since 7,000 gold coins were not enough to move him. Kaman stopped raising his price, and waved at his men behind him. Go talk to this man. Yes. Kaman's men were well trained. They had Lin Li surrounded in a split second. Seeing as a fight was about to break out, Herza was concerned, and hurriedly warned Kaman, President Kaman, don't do anything stupid, you're going to regret this. Don't worry, I just want to talk to this man, I won't hurt him. Herza rolled his eyes upon hearing this as he scolded him inwardly. You fool, I'm worried he'll hurt you. Of course, Kaman did not think so. Kaman thought he had the upper hand now as he eyed the insolent young man. Well, can we talk now, sir? Lin Li said nothing as he turned around to look at the 30-odd people surrounding him. The weaker ones were around level 6 to 7, while the stronger ones were around level 11 and 12. It seemed that this Rosen Union had quite a bit of influence. Perhaps he would have to talk to this fatty since he had no choice but to work with an influential union. Of course, he had a slightly unorthodox method of working in mind. Don't waste too much time, Norfeller. Yes. Is this a joke? At this point, Kaman seriously doubted the young man's ability to communicate. Why else was it so difficult for them to do so? Don't waste too much time? Damn it, what has this got to do with wasting time? And then, Kaman heard a terrible cry. The shrill cry sounded like it came from the depths of hell, and the confused Kaman trembled before he saw blood spill, unusually vibrant in the afternoon sun. Then he heard the second cry, then the third. It all happened too quickly for anyone to react to. Only after the 10th cry did Kaman see that only half of his 30 men remained. The cause of their deaths was a black shadow weaving through the crowd. The black-cloaked and pale-faced young man was taking lives, like the Grim Reaper wielding a sickle. Fear was sparked in his heart, and spread wildly like a plague. When Come On came back to his senses, his round face was as white as a sheet of paper. Come On was gripped in endless fear as his heart palpitated, causing him to pant. Never in his wildest dreams had he pictured such a horrifying creature that could kill more than half of his men in a split second without breaking a sweat. It looked as easy as picking up a pebble to him. What really scared Come On was the indifferent attitude of the young man. Not a trace of sympathy or hesitation could be seen in his cold-blooded killing spree, just as if he had done it more times than he bothered to count. Come On knew that this man would not consider the consequences of his actions, much less be concerned about the fact that Come On was the president of Rosen Union. At this moment, Come On thought he saw the shadow of death pressing in on him. "All right, Norfeller, that's enough." At least 20 lives including that of Come On had been spared at the young mage's command. "Yes, master." Norfeller had impaled the chest of the only mage, just as he finished the sentence. God, Come On felt himself blacking out as he watched the mage fall. That was the only mage amongst his men, and he was a level 11 mage too. Come On gave him an important position in the Rosen Union, and even he could not help but be polite whenever he gave him a task. In all honesty, the mage was deserving of this treatment, for Rosen Union might be the only one with such power, and the mage's presence guaranteed their protection from bandits and extortion. Without him, the Rosen Union would have to spend another 50,000 gold coins every year. And now, this mage worth 50,000 gold coins was easily killed, his chest pierced through. "Well, Mr. Come On, I think we can talk now." Come On felt himself shiver even though Lin Li smiled at him. It felt like he was being eyed by a venomous snake. He forced himself to speak with all his strength, but ended up trembling right after the first sentence. What would you like to talk about?" "Relax, President Come On, you look too strung up." Come On almost blew up hearing this. If not for the monstrous, pale-faced young man standing before him, Come On would have cursed loudly. "Relax? Damn it, it's easy for you to say that. Your monster of a man killed a dozen of my men in a flash, even my only mage. Wouldn't you be strung up if it were you in my place?" Of course, he could not voice his anger, and he would never dare do it even if he had to. Not only that, he had to obediently nod his head and put up a casual front, but his cover was unfortunately blown by his pale face and trembling hands. "I heard you are in the stone trade?" "Yes." Come On gulped as he eyed Lin Li with fear and hesitation, wondering why this man was suddenly interested in his business. Damn it, is he eyeing the Rosen Council? Great, Lin Li nodded with satisfaction as Come On was torn between fear and hesitation. "Right, let me introduce myself. I'm Felik, a mage from Jerosis, but I may be living in Duland for a while. I'm sure you'll welcome me?" "Of course, welcome, welcome." Come On fought to squeeze out a smile, but due to his fear, it turned out worse than a grimace. Lin Li was not concerned with that, since this gross fatty would never look anywhere near pleasant even if he tried. He was more concerned if this fatty would cooperate with him, the rest could be dealt with by Norfeller. "Alright, President Come On, I shall cut to the chase. Right now, I have a favor to ask of you. I'm sure you won't refuse me given your generosity?" "Of course not," Come On eagerly agreed before Lin Li even finished his sentence. Of course, he was not nearly as eager as he sounded. Come On winced as he nodded. Now that he was at the mercy of Lin Li, he would have to accede to any favor asked of him. He could not bear to imagine what this would cost him. Perhaps he would have to supply stones at way below their price, or maybe he would have to give him a share in the Rosen Union. Either way, Come On could not help feeling like he would face an insufferable loss. "It's very simple, I'm going to need stones soon, and even though it won't be much, I'm going to need quite a variety of them. I don't have the time to look for them myself, so I'll have to trouble you for that. I'll write you a list later, so keep a lookout for me if you have the time. Once you get them, bring them to Black Hills town, and I'll buy them from you at the market price." "Huh?" Come On thought he had heard wrongly when Lin Li said market price. "Why, you think that's too low a price?" No. Come On hurriedly denied it in fear. Goodness, Lin Li held his life in his hands, so he would be lucky to cut his losses, much less earn a profit from making a sale at market price. Come on, did not dare imagine such luck. Why would he refuse it now? After settling the terms briefly, Lin Li inquired about the stone market in Duland, and was satisfied to hear that rare stones could be found frequently due to Duland being situated at the borders of the Felon Kingdom and the Dwarf Kingdom. Besides that, the breezy plains was already rich in resources, which meant that most stones could be easily obtained on the market. Then, Lin Li gave Come On a list. Come On felt himself getting cross-eyes looking at the list. Hell, is this guy playing a joke on me? There are at least 30 kinds of stones on the list, and each of them is a rare magical or in small amounts. Is this a magical ingredient of some sort? Alright, President, come on, if there is nothing else to say, I shall not delay you any further. However, I hope you will get the stones ready as soon as possible. I would hate to personally head down to Duland to rush you since this is our first time working together. This was a thinly veiled threat. I got it. As they watched Come On leave, Herza whispered to Lin Li, Felix, why do you need so much magical metal? This is not a small sum. If you need so much money, why not invest in building the tower first? You know as well as I do that the budget given by the Supreme Council is not very adequate. Lin Li, however, confidently said, haha, Mr. Herza, the stones I'm buying will be used to build the tower. What? You'll see, Lin Li answered mysteriously, his stare becoming mischievous as he watched Come On leave. He was in luck. He had just reached Duland, but he had already got to know a businessman who monopolized the stone trade, and in such rare circumstances too. With this alone, he could get him to purchase stones for him as well as sell his finished products. A simple exchange like this would snowball his profits. The following days were peaceful, and everything was going according to plan. The workers sent by the Supreme Council had started building the tower, and Come On had begun to send over rare magical metals. Besides visiting Duland every once in a while, Lin Li spent his time alone with Norfeller. Nobody knew what he was up to these days. Well, strictly speaking, Lin Li was not up to anything these days. The strange encounter in the Aurora Square had brought him many things, which included a dozen core magical mantras. This was enough research material to last a lifetime for any mage. Luckily for Lin Li, these mantras were embedded in his memory like a soul brand he was born with, so all he needed to do was to internalize the information, and he would be able to master them with ease. Even that was no small feat, and would take a long time as the dozen core magical mantras were akin to all there was in magic. Anyone who could master all of them had to be a god or close to one. Even though Lin Li had committed all of them to memory, he was still far away from mastering all of them. Of course, memorizing all of them had its benefits. At least it made it easier than before for Lin Li to use magic, as evidenced by the fight in the Demon Fall Valley. Old Merlin was a powerful level 15 archmage, and even though he was not as skilled as Lin Li, he was comparable to the latter. Yet, he was forced to remain on defensive as he failed to pose any threat to Lin Li all the way until he died. Such was the power of the core magical mantras. Lin Li did not harbor high expectations initially considering how profound the core magical mantras were. Even the mages who had reached the legendary realm and surpassed it could not say that they had mastered the mantras, much less Lin Li, who was merely a level 16 archmage. However, Lin Li found his understanding of magic growing as time went by. He found the answers to the questions he'd had in the past as well as questions he'd never thought he had. It was a surreal experience for Lin Li, who was immersed in the knowledge. It excited him to the point where he did not set foot outside the house for a month as he buried himself in his research. These mantras were like endless treasure troves to say the least, and Lin Li found himself gaining enlightenment and finding new techniques to use his magic with each passing day. The boring and routine-like days passed by quickly as a month had gone by in a flash. In that month, Lin Li occasionally called on Norfeller to test out his strength. He had to admit that Norfeller was indeed a worthy opponent. As a high-ranking vampire, he held impeccable strength in his body and was well-versed in necromagic. According to his calculations, Norfeller was at least on par with a level 17 necromancer. Norfeller started out winning by a small margin, but the more Lin Li understood the core magical mantras, the more difficult it became for Norfeller. In the last couple of days, especially, Lin Li found that he could defeat Norfeller in half an hour if Norfeller only used necromagic. What Norfeller found perplexing was the fact that he clearly felt this young man's power remaining at level 16. He could not understand how a level 16 archmage managed to repeatedly defeat a level 17 archmage so effortlessly. Norfeller found no other explanation besides the fact Lin Li was the incarnation of the immortal king. All in all, Lin Li had been very satisfied with the work in the past month. Like any other day, Lin Li woke up at dawn and went for breakfast with the little dragonhawk before going on a walk outside of town as he observed the progress of the tower's construction. He then returned to his house to study the core magical mantras. Who knew that a series of knocks would be heard from the door not long after he sat down? Strange, Lin Li frowned, slightly doubtful as he answered the door. Ever since Herza left, the people in Black Cloud's town rarely came to look for him. The workers building the tower, however, were unbelievably arrogant, and would have hardly spared him a glance if not for the Supreme Council's direct orders. Yeah, just like that Moke, Lin Li could not comprehend how anyone could be so silly. Moke outdid his silliness after Herza left as he either ignored Lin Li or sneered at him, saying that he was not engaging in honest work as a mage and instead meddled secretively with magical metals like an idiot. Damn it, you're the idiot here. Sometimes, Lin Li really wanted to slap his face. Unfortunately, he never found a reason to. Strangely, hateful as he was, Moke never did anything out of line. Lin Li felt all the more irritated that he could not find a reason to slap him. Come on? Lin Li saw a familiar face as he opened the door to the study. Great, that's great, Mage Felix, you're here indeed. Come on stood there flushed and panting heavily as if he had just finished a marathon. Before Lin Li could ask him what was the matter, Come on started speaking while still out of breath. Mage Felix, I found a batch of rare magical metal. Oh? Lin Li was intrigued when he heard him mention rare magical metal, and hurriedly ushered him inside. Quick, tell me what rare magical metal is it? Well, you see, Mage Felix, a dwarf, brought a batch of ice crystal metal to the stone trading bank today. Ice crystal metal? Lin Li frowned as soon as he heard what Come On said. He was familiar with ice crystal metal, and had once held a dagger made of it in the Endless World. Incredibly sharp and powerful, it was hailed as a classic amongst magical equipment. Lin Li had beheaded at least 10 high-ranking warriors and slit open the belly of Azardas, the dragon of destruction, with the said dagger. A pity that he could not bring it with him when he arrived in this time. Yes, ice crystal metal, a whole carriage of refined ice crystal metal. Come On's beady eyes positively glowed at the mention of this. Paired with his panting round face, he was the definition of comical. Lin Li had no concern for this, however, as he hurriedly questioned Come On before he finished speaking. What's his price? 1 million gold coins. Come On eyed Lin Li carefully as he said this, fearing that the figure would anger Lin Li. He was a young mage who killed without batting an eye, so Come On would be deep in trouble if Lin Li thought he was being greedy and got angry. 1 million gold coins? Lin Li brushed his nose as he stood up from where he was sitting without questioning further. Let's go, bring me there. What? Bring me to Duland, I want all of that ice crystal metal. Come On nearly bit his tongue. Damn it, mages are all filthy rich, how can he decide to buy 1 million gold coins worth of ice crystal metal without bargaining at all? Hell, this is 1 million gold coins, not 100 copper coins. What are you waiting for? Oh, right, Come On jumped at Lin Li's words, and quickly followed him out of the house to the carriage waiting outside. Lin Li did not bring Norfeller along this time as the latter was an undead creature, which might cause a scene if he appeared in Duland. The unusually devoted followers of Brilliant's shrine took it upon themselves to exterminate evil undead creatures, and might mistake him for one of them as well. Wouldn't he be in trouble then? Right. Come on, did you manage to sell the magical weapons I got you to previously? Yes, Mage Felix, all 4 of them have been sold. Your crystal card has been credited with the money, you can check the transaction details anytime you wish. To be honest, Mage Felix, in my years of doing business, I've never seen such popular goods. They were gone in less than half a day after we put them up. At the mention of the 4 magical weapons, Come On suddenly grew excited, and rattled on about how he was amazed by it. He had been doubtful about the weapons when Lin Li handed them to him, as they did not look like ancient artifacts, nor did they look like they had been crafted by a master artisan, and Come On was worried that he would not be able to sell them. Little did he know that someone would come to inquire about them the day they were listed in his shop. Come On remembered that it was a level 15 warrior adventurer by the name of Jason. He was a well-known figure in Duland, and was a powerful warrior who accomplished all his missions so far, thus making him a promising figure among adventurers. Come On recalled that Jason was interested in the sword forged of runes adamantine. That was the most expensive of the 4, with a price tag of 20,000 gold coins, more than enough to deter most buyers. Jason did not even frown as he swiped his crystal card. Instead, Come On clearly remembered how ecstatic he looked, just as if that had been a bargain. Come On had wondered if Jason was crazy for blowing through his fortune for a mere weapon. Soon, he realized that Jason was not. In the span of a day, the other 3 weapons were sold, each at a price higher than what was initially set. The dagger made of Dream Realm metal was by far the most ridiculous, as 2 high-ranking bandits fought over it. The dagger was sold at 30,000 gold coins even though it had originally been priced at 5,000. Come On suddenly came to realize the incredible power this young mage he had just met held. He could get over 1,000,000 gold coins easily in exchange for a few pieces of magical equipment, something only the legendary smithing master was capable of. The following days saw Come On's stone trading shop brimming with customers who were mostly level 15 and above, asking Come On to bring out more magical equipment. In order to purchase equipment of their liking, these powerful individuals tried to outdo each other with promises of protection and bringing more business for Come On. It all felt like a dream for Come On. While Come On held great wealth and controlled over half of the stone trade in the past, he was well aware that he was nothing more than a speck of dust to these powerful individuals. They did not have any regard for him previously, for they knew they would never have to turn to Come On for anything. The Rosen Union could not compare to the Glitter Gold Trade Union, after all, and they had neither legendary members nor powerful hitmen. While they held some influence, it was never enough for them to be respected in this power-hungry town. However, as the 4 weapons were sold, it all seemed to change. Luckily, Come On was well aware of the fact that this was all because of the young mage in Black Cloud's town, the very young mage that had cost Come On the loss of half of his subordinates. Well, he felt different about the matter after a month, even being thankful that he had brought his men to stir up trouble at Black Cloud's town, or how would he have got to know Mage Felix otherwise? Not everyone had an opportunity to meet a smithing master. Of course, Lin Li knew what happened in the process, he just was not interested. Right now, he was only concerned about the carriage of ice crystal metal. Legend had it that it could only be found in the frozen soil of the poles, and weapons made of ice crystal metal were not only incredibly sharp, but also boasted a powerful corrosive property. Even a dragon's scale would break with one blow. What was truly terrifying about ice crystal metal was not the weapons it could be made into, rather, it was the projectiles it could be made into, especially bolts used for defensive purposes. Equipment became truly lethal once it was equipped with a bolt made of ice crystal metal. Till this day, Lin Li remembered the 50 chariots armed with ice crystal metal crossbows at the Bright Moon Castle in Endless World. Even a god would not survive a volley from all 50 crossbows. When Come On mentioned the dwarf had an entire carriage full of ice crystal metal, Lin Li knew he had found the answer to a question he had long since been worried about. While he could avoid most trouble by building his tower in Black Cloud's town, defense remained a concern, as Black Cloud's town was well connected and situated on flat ground. If he was met with an attack from the likes of the Shadow's Nest, wouldn't his tower suffer a repeat of the Emerald Tower's fate? This carriage full of ice crystal metal would solve his problem. With 10 chariots armed with ice crystal metal crossbows, while he might not defeat a god, he could definitely kill everyone below level 20. Let's go to Duland. Lin Li eagerly called on Norfeller as he boarded a carriage with Come On. Mage Felix, Come On carefully shifted away from Norfeller on the carriage. Perhaps it was due to their less than pleasant first meeting, but Come On remained fearful of Norfeller, and felt himself seize up whenever the pale-faced young man was near. What is it? Do you want to reconsider this? 1 million gold coins is not a small amount. Come on, hesitated as he stumbled over his words. Honestly, 1 million was too expensive a price to come on. Haha, we'll see then. 1 million gold coins was not an expensive price at all to Lin Li, for he was well aware of the value of ice crystal metal even though others might not be. The metal could only be found in soil frozen for 1,000 years, and even a fistful was immeasurably precious, much less an entire carriage of it. While 1 million gold coins was not a small amount, it was only money in the end. If he so wished, Lin Li could always earn it back. However, he might not come across an entire carriage full of ice crystal metal again. As the carriage pulled up to Duland, the streets were bustling with people. Mornings in Duland were always crowded and chaotic as everybody busied themselves with their daily errands. Even the air smelled of the town's bustle. The Rosen Union stone trading shop was next to the Adventurers Guild in the southern part of Duland. Lin Li had to admit that Kaman had foresight as this place was filled with adventurers even though it was not a rich district, thus bringing them much business. It was safe to say that more than a half of the Rosen Union's wealth was thanks to business from adventurers. As the three alighted from the carriage, the shop was unusually crowded with a few dozen men surrounding the door, discussing away. For some reason, Lin Li saw Kaman's expression change as he set foot on the steps. What's that? Sorry, Mage Felix. I think I may have a small problem. Kaman paled as he eyed the crowd outside the shop. Before Kaman finished speaking, a curse could be heard from the crowd. Damn it, you idiots, get your boss here now. I don't have the patience to deal with you, don't make me burn your scam of a shop. Who's that irritable man? Lin Li muttered as he brushed his nose. Kaman was a rich and powerful man, after all. To be snubbed by a man like this meant this might not just be a small problem. Of course, Lin Li was not interested in this, as he was only working with Kaman for now, he wouldn't even call it partnership. Hence, he chose not to stand up for Kaman, seeing as he was not looking for trouble. Lin Li was right. As he muttered to himself, the impatient man started smashing the shop, which was left in a mess with a crash. Kaman wiped the sweat that had formed on his forehead, and reproved, who the hell dares to make a scene at the Rosen Union shop? However, he froze just as he finished his rant. Young Master Lazaric, what brings you here? A young man in his 20s emerged from the shop, his chubby and round physique rivaling that of Kaman, looking like a disco ball as his ostentatious armor made of silver glittered in the sunlight. The fatty waddled over, and glared at Kaman with his beady eyes, before his shooting his accusations out of the blue. Damn it, Kaman, you've got some guts, how dare you fool me? Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.